Well, 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 here we are. Finally done with the new album called Surrender. I figured I'd make a video going through every song and kind of giving the backstory for each song, breaking it down step by step so you guys can get the insider perspective on it. It's going to be a longer video because I can only edit this. I have like half a day to edit this. So I'm just going to turn the camera on and let it roll, and there'll be probably minimal editing. So I'll have timestamps for each song if you just want to skip to each song. But before I get into it, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the overarching theme of this album. If you didn't go watch my Zinchronex Z-Day video, I'll link it up here. I kind of talked about a lot of this stuff 3 months ago when I had just started working on this album. But in summary, you should really go watch that video if you haven't seen it already. But in summary, the band Zinchronex was the one thing in my life that I had been holding on to and not letting God take control over. I had this identity of myself that I had to have, and I was not going to let it up. I wanted to be the punk rock kid who could, play guitar really well and everything. But that's why the music never took off. That's why I never really had anything I could feel good about, like showing people who I knew were more solid in their faith than I was. And I guess I didn't really come to realize that until recently. And that's why I made that video, is I just made the decision. I'm not gonna... There's a rap song. I don't listen to a lot of rap, but I don't know who the guy is, but his line was, "If I'm not rapping the Lord, I'm not pressing record." And so I kind of came to that conclusion myself, like, if it's not gonna at least honor God, it doesn't have to necessarily be about Jesus or the Bible and stuff, but if I'm just trying to do what I want and then shoehorn in a gospel message at the end, like I've always done with Zinchronex, then I don't want to do that anymore. So I had to let Zinchronex die in order to have, I guess, the Audio Jake album be reborn. And a lot of stuff this past month of July has been like really big. A lot of stuff has changed just in the past 3 weeks. So I guess the first thing, I had a video on my channel breaking down what was the first song. I called it Angst at that point. That's not even the first song anymore, and the album is not even called High School Days anymore. So I took that video off my channel. I might put it up on like a playlist or something. But yeah, so I decided I was going to change the album title. I was going to change the song order, and I rewrote the lyrics for pretty much every song within the past 3 weeks. And I rewrote the structure for a couple of songs, and we'll get into that. But all that being said, I decided to call this album Surrender because I had to surrender my wants and desires for my future, for what this music can turn into. I had to give that up. And there's a lot of, pretty much every song has a reference to letting go or giving up or surrendering, because that's just the biggest thing I've had to learn in my life. And this album is kind of the manifestation of God teaching me that. And I would hope that through my journey of surrender, by making this album, it can inspire those who listen to it to do the same, because it's a lot better when you surrender and just give it all to God. He can do so much more than you could ever have imagined. That's what this album has become. I never thought it would be as good as it is. He has really, I can't even really take the credit for writing these words. Like, it just kind of came to me. Like, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks, right? Like, once I had Jesus in my heart, I guess, it was so easy for it to just come out. Like, I would spend, that's why it took me 8 years. One of the songs we'll get to is the first song I ever wrote. And it took me 8 years to get there with it because I knew my heart wasn't in the right place. And I was like, I don't want to put this out because I was like forcing the words and it wasn't really like, it just wasn't true to me. And so once I got that moment of, my heart has been changed, it was so easy for the words to just come out. So I don't even take credit for writing the lyrics, really, honestly. But anyway, that's enough talking. We'll get into the first song. Let me pull it up for you. I won't listen through every song because that would be way too long of a video. You should go listen to the album if you haven't done it already. Or, I don't know, I might release this video before the album comes out. I don't know. I'll make sure you know where to listen to the full songs and everything. But, so the first song is called Roots. It was not the first song for a long time. This was song number 4 in the album for a while. I decided this was the best song, though, after listening to it and recording it. This is probably the best song, and I wanted to put my best foot forward. And it's really a good encapsulation of that journey I was just talking about, like starting out, losing my way, and then finding where I was. So, here's the intro. Got a cool little guitars. And then come into the big guitars, and then I'll show you the bass intro. It was a really cool ninth thing. I had to tune the high G string. I had to tune it up a whole fret, a whole step. I think I had to tune it up a whole step so I could reach the high ninth on the I guess that'd be the B flat chord. I'm having to think like without an instrument in my head, but I had to tune a little bit different for that intro. Anyway, so that's the cool intro. I really like that, and then you come in with the screaming. I thought that's just a great way to start the album, as opposed to what I would usually do is come in real punchy, real aggressive, really, angsty. I figured I'm going to do it a little different this time. I'm going to have a little smooth, sweet intro, and then come in big. And I think that's a better representation of where I'm at musically now, too. The structure for this song totally changed as well. For a long time, this main riff, so for a long time that main riff was going to be underneath the entire verse as well. And I was like, that's going to get repetitive. So I decided I'm going to put in these kind of alternative guitars during the verses, while the bass, and then I was going to have the bass keep the riff going, but then I was like, that's too busy. So I decided to just keep it real simple in the verse, and I didn't have really a good verse melody. I guess I should have an instrument with me while I'm going through these songs, but the verses, I was going to be doing. When I initially wrote the song, the melody was also going to be da 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 da. So everything was just going to be hammering that little intro part for the whole song. And I was like, that's going to be annoying. So how about I just get rid of it entirely for the verse and just keep just the chords, or something like that. That's what I did for the bass. And then I decided to put in these kind of like still distorted, but like not as big guitars. And then I was like, well, that's gonna get kind of annoying too, and I wanna give it a little bit more. I wanna build. So verse 2, I came up with this really cool. This is one of my favorite things on this album. This little part. I came up with this really cool. Oh, here, yeah, right there. Sorry. This button. So cool. Yeah. So I came up with this little. I kind of stole an Alter Bridge song, "One Day Remains." That song, and I kind of turned it into. So I thought that fit really well underneath verse 2. And then verse 3, I made all these decisions long after I had written the song. The only thing I really kept for this song was the chorus. The structure changed, like I'm saying. So the verse 3, I was like, I want to keep the energy, but then I had also always had going from down to F, down to E for the verse 3. I had always had that, like adding that. So I was like, but I want to, on the third and fourth time, I would come down to the F. So I was like, for the first two, I don't want to just do, because that's boring, and I said I didn't want to do that for the verses, but how do I keep the energy? So I was just like, you know what, let's just turn on the Sustainiac and just let the craziness begin. So just sustain it out. Get some vibrato in it. Slide down into that. And then that's where I decided to change the melody there too, because, and this was again recently, in the past couple weeks, the verse melody I initially came up with, or the one you're going to hear on the album, I came up with 3 weeks ago. But then I said, let's do it a little bit different for verse 3 as well. And so I just held out. I was like, what if we just made it long and kind of did some harmonies? And so, and then I love this, that little harmony. That's why I came to die. Where is it? Right here. Why I came to die. Kind of smooth. And then that harmony turned out so good too. And then I was like, well, I'd always had kind of like a down chorus for the end, and then come back in big. So this is not a change structurally. This had always kind of been the same. But I'm sprouting roots in a place where these little harmonics, I totally came up with that just recently. Then that cool, the harmonic. I just was like, how do I bring us back in really quick? Just huge shift. And so, let's just listen to those soft guitars a little bit. I don't actually even remember what I played, really. I just kind of got what sounded good, and then did a double with a different set of harmonics to kind of match it. But anyway, I figured, because of that music, the way the music had changed like that, and I'll talk about the lyrics now. I kind of was using the music to determine the lyrical shift. So on this verse, or this chorus rather, it's the change. I don't really have a bridge on this song. If I did have a bridge, it would be like the end of verse 3, where it goes into that. Why I came to die. The melody changes, the chords change a little bit. So that's kind of a bridge, and then the down chorus is a very big shift. So, in any song, the bridge is the most important part of the song because that's where the change happens. And so I'm like, well, how do I really emphasize that change lyrically? And so that the chorus of the song, and this is kind of the way the song, when I wrote it back, I guess maybe when I was 16, 17, something like that. The whole concept of the song was, I really didn't want to grow up in Kentucky. And for a long time, a huge part of my life was this like identity crisis of like, yeah, I was born in California. I mean, like, I don't know, I still got like the Angels poncho on my, mixing chair, I guess, but like, it was a huge part of my identity trying to figure out, I was born in California, and my family's from California. I have a lot of that, like, I guess, Californian culture just in how I grew up. But the majority of my grown up years were in Cincinnati or northern Kentucky. So really trying to figure out where are my roots. And so that was the concept I was reaching for when I initially wrote it. But I was very dissatisfied with how everything was. And so that's why the chorus, which I kept, was, I'm sprouting roots in a place where I don't want to grow. It's getting harder for me to leave. I'm growing up in a place where I just don't belong. Someone uproot me before I become a tree. Because I did not want to spend the rest of my life in Kentucky. And I figured it's pretty relatable. There's probably a lot of people out there who don't like where they live and don't want to spend too much more time there. And just want to get out as much as they can. But anyway, back to the bridge. The story of the song, the bridge is, it's still accepting I'm sprouting roots in a place where maybe I don't want, maybe I threw in maybe just now, but like, maybe you still don't want to grow there. And it's getting harder for you to leave. But I'll hold on loosely because this world is not my home. And Jesus, in you, I find my true identity. So that was the big change that I had to learn through this song was, my identity is not in where I was born. It's not in the color of my skin. It's not in who I think I am. It's not in my profession. It's not in my skills. My true identity is only found in Jesus. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people are dealing with these days. It's just trying to figure out what group they belong to or what tribe they're a part of. I was trying to be part of the punk rock tribe, I guess, for a while. And when it comes down to it, there's no tribe smaller than the individual. And that's what Jesus wants. If you want to be part of his tribe, he just wants to see you as an individual. That's how he sees us, as individual people. And so he's the only place where I can find my true identity. But anyway, I'll go a little bit more into the words here. So, like I said, all of the words have been rewritten for the verses. But that's the story with the chorus. So verse 1 is, ever since the day I was born, I did not fit in. It's not entirely true. My parents loved me, and I had a good childhood. And I'm not like, this is not me complaining about my childhood. But I was also, I kind of used for this line, I was the only youngest in my family. Both my parents were the oldest siblings, and my brother was the oldest sibling. So I was the only youngest in my family. So I was like, yeah, in a way, I guess I didn't fit in. But I don't know. In my family, I felt very comfortable. But then, growing up and meeting with other people who didn't have the same upbringing I had, I didn't fit in with them. So it felt weird. But anyway, that's kind of that line. I felt just like a skeleton in someone else's skin, more just like a cool, artsy way to rhyme the next line, I guess. You can feel like an imposter sometimes, I guess, is the idea that like you're trying to be somebody you're not. I searched everywhere to find the place where I'd belong. I really did. I was trying so hard to fit in with whatever I thought was cool, just so I could be different from other people. And it's just not good. And that's the next line. Hoping that I could ignore what I knew all along. Because I knew the whole time that this was not where I should be chasing my identity. I knew that it wasn't right. Like, you just have that sense, like, in your heart of, this is just the wrong thing, you know? And I spent a long time trying to ignore it. And so I would say, I'm sprouting roots in a place where I don't want to grow. It's getting harder for me to leave. I'm growing up in a place where I just don't belong. Someone uproot me before I become a tree. And so that was, the first, verse 1 is kind of like why I would say the chorus, and my perspective on this is why I came to that conclusion for the chorus. Verse 2 is kind of asking the audience if you have had the same experience. Have you ever been a stranger in your own hometown? And hometown, again, is a hard question for me, because what's my hometown? I was born in Redlands, California, but, you know, Riverside, California, I guess would be my hometown, technically, but I didn't grow up there. I don't know anybody there, really. And anytime we'd go back to visit, like, my grandparents and, like, drive around and stuff, you know, it's like, nobody knows me here. I'm a stranger. And then, growing up in Cincinnati, it felt kind of the same way, or Northern Kentucky. I say Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati interchangeably because that's the region I lived in. But it was like I didn't fit in. Like, because I was different from everybody who lived there, that was supposed to be, I guess, my hometown if I grew up there. But I didn't fit in there either. So both places, I was a stranger in my hometown. So I'm asking the audience if they've had the same experience. Have you ever been alone when everyone's around? That's one that I think a lot of people can relate to. When you're in a room full of people and it's just like, man, I don't want to be with these people. Like, I'm just kind of here, you know? But, like, I'm just trying to hang out, but you still get that loneliness kind of a thing. I kind of stole that one from, I don't want to talk too much about the music I used to listen to back in these days, because God's really gotten on my heart about letting the past die and letting the music that I listened to back then die with it. But you know, you can reference songs from the past, I guess. But there's a Suicidal Tendencies song called "Alone," and the line was, "I feel so alone in a room full of people," I guess. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration for that line. Have you ever been alone when everyone's around? Sometimes you want to run as far as you can go. There was times where I thought about, you know, what if I just, like, got in my car and just, like, drove and just saw where I ended up. And sometimes it was like, what if I just went back to California and just, like, drove out there and just, like, went to stay with my grandparents and, like, just figured all this identity crisis out. And, like, just whatever I could do to get out of there and just reset and get my brain reset. But then I thought about it. Thankfully, I'm, I guess, smart enough to realize if I thought through that logic. You know, I never really thought of, like, running away from home, I guess. Maybe to an extent I did when I was younger, but, like, it wasn't like I thought I seriously entertained, because of the next line. You know that when you stop, you'll still be all alone. You know? Because it's like, you can do all this running, but, like, once you stop, then what? You know? Like, do you want to run for the rest of your life? You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it. So, you know you can't run, but you don't want to stay, and so you say, I'm sprouting roots in a place where I don't want to grow. It's getting harder for me to leave. I'm growing up in a place where I just don't belong. Someone uproot me before I become a tree. So that was kind of my perspective, and then asking someone else if they've had the same things I experienced. If you hear a noise, it's because the trash truck is on the street down there. So, anyway, and then verse 3 is again the shift, the tonal shift of the song. But then, in my desert place, I met a man so free, a man who showed me how the world was really supposed to be. He said, because we've had this recurring theme of, and so I'd say, and so you say, and so I have a little he said to quote what Jesus says. Your true identity is only found in me. That's why I came to die, so that you'd be free, so that you wouldn't have to keep searching for where you belong, so that you wouldn't have to keep looking for everything. That's what Jesus does. He gives us a place. We're adopted at that point. We're no longer his enemy. We are sons and daughters of God along with Jesus. And we can call God Abba Father because he has given us that identity by dying on the cross for us and reconciling our sin debt. And God looks on us and sees Jesus now as one of us, and sees us as one of his children. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's why Jesus came to die. So now I'll say, so that's what he said, so now I'll say, yeah, I'm sprouting roots in a place where I don't want to grow. It's getting harder for me to leave, but I'll hold on loosely because this world is not my home. Jesus in you, I find my true identity. And then last, outro part, and so now I'll live my life according to your word. Every single day, I'll give my life away. From now until I die, my roots will always be in what you say. Which is, I really love the common theme of, so now I'll say, so now you say, and so I'd say. And it's always on those transition lines. And I love how to end it, it's, my roots will always be in what you say. Because I started off, this is what I would say, and then asking the audience, is this what you would say? And then, this is what Jesus said. So now, Jesus, my roots will be in what you say. So it's all about this common theme of what is being said. And the cool little parallel on that, because the melody is the same, on the walk down part. So it's, that's why I came to die, so that you'd be free. And so then, when you get that same motif again, from now until I die, it's like I'm paralleling why Jesus came to die, and now what I'll do until I die. And I thought that was a really cool way to kind of wrap everything together. I'm really happy with how the lyrical content of this song turned out. And that's why I say I can't take any credit for it. Because this song was maybe 6 years old. But it took 6 years of me surrendering my identity. Again, back to the concept of surrender. It took 6 years of me surrendering my identity to get to this point where I could say, Jesus in you, I find my true identity. And from now until I die, my roots will always be in what you say. So this is probably the best song on my album, and I figured I need to put my best foot forward, and it's a good encapsulation of what the whole album is kind of about in pieces. The rest of the songs are kind of pieces of that journey. So this is kind of establishing the tone, and this is a really, really personal song for me, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I can't take any credit for the words, because it just all kind of came to me when I was just thinking about it, and like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So anyway, that's Roots.